Hi, I'm Joe DeLisi, and this is the Joe DeLisi Financial Advisor Podcast. All right, welcome to the Joe DeLisi Financial Advisor Podcast. Today, I'm happy to welcome Neal Brincefield. The thing I hate, Neal, is when people just read off a litany of things that don't mean anything to anybody. So the way I'm going to introduce you is how I know you. Neal has been in the business for, I don't know, 2007 or so, almost 20 years. Who I know Neal to be is much more than just a financial advisor. This is really for my audience. He is the guy that stands up in front of 1,000 financial advisors and trains and coaches them on the planning system that if you're my client, living balance sheet. He's been instrumental in the creation of a lot of the calculators that are in there. Very instrumental in, I would say, bringing living balance sheet from what it started off in 2006 as just sort of an aggregation tool into something so much more, including the app, which not enough of our clients use, in my opinion. But I think, from my perspective, it's really it's been the tool that removes worry, which is really our mission. It's to remove worry from clients' lives, and it's really the tool that we've done that through. So, thank you, Neal, for being here. Thank you for the work you've done on the living balance sheet and with advisors generally.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Joe.
I think we're going to have some fun here. I would also say Neal is a friend of mine, so I have to set aside the friend hat for a second and be very professional here. So I don't, although I will ask, I'm a huge Vegas hockey fan. I know you're in Raleigh. Did you watch any of the Stanley Cup?
Yeah, I watched all of it.
You did?
You remember how it ended, Joe?
I do. I do remember how it ended. In fact, I was at the last game that the Vegas Golden Knights won in Vegas, where it was double overtime win, and I thought we had it in the bag. So,
yeah, it looked like it was going that way. I do think we set a rarely set precedent in the world of hockey of like two cities that historically have no business playing hockey being the best in the NHL, at least for one season. So.
Hockey's a strange one now. It's a lot of the southern cities are much, Tampa Bay, a lot of them more so than Montreal, which, so it's not.
It's where the best players want to live. They want to live in the warm weather.
Not Carolina necessarily, but yeah, I get it.
Fair enough. I'll give you that victory.
I want to start with this question because I alluded to it a second ago. Really, I'm not one on mission statements. You go to these different companies. You've done it. I've done it, Neal. And, people they'll reference a mission statement, but they can't tell you what it is. And so I don't have a mission statement, but I do have a theme, and it's just removing worry. Allow us to worry for you, removing worry generally. In your, you've spoken to and dealt with many more advisors and by extension of that, many more clients than I have. If I had to ask you, what is the number one? And I'm thinking of successful families now. Not the 20 somethings that are just starting off, but people who have some time. They've done what they think is the right thing. What are they worried about? What would you say? What do you think?
Yeah, I love that question. I think that people, almost regardless of net worth, almost, there's a limit at which maybe the statement won't always ring true, but generally speaking, I find that people anywhere on the income scale, they worry about cash flow. Cash flow is always this thing that is the source of stress. When they are 20 somethings, it's like the cash flow worry is, am I going to pay my bills? And that's like the most fundamental, like bottom of the pyramid of financial needs probably. But your cash flow concerns just change. They evolve over time. Am I saving enough money? Am I saving enough for college? Am I saving enough for retirement? Am I using enough cash flow to pay debt down? Like those are the worries people have. I find it keeps people awake at night. Like they're stressed out about it when they're in their working years, kind of going up the mountain, trying to accumulate wealth for retirement. And then everybody worries about cash flow when it comes to whatever their perception of retirement is, like whatever that phase of their life is going to look like. They're all worried about how they're going to create passive income in a way that is sustainable. It lets them live free from worry, to use your language. They're above and insulated from like the risks. They're not going to run out. They're going to be able to deal with the unexpected events. Like, how do you create a cash flow strategy in that phase of your life that's going to check all those boxes? It's a tough thing to do, and I just find that's what people worry about. Ultimately, that's where all the worry goes. If you're successful enough, then you get to upgrade to that type of worry.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Now there's always going to be a number, with
Yeah, it's
which
all relative,
the
right?
cash flow. Yeah, it's relative.
Half a million, 5 million, or whatever it is, you have a lifestyle that you want to sustain and a quality of life that like means something to you and to the people you're taking care of. And there's a lot of forces at work to prevent you from continuing that. And that is to me, that worry is the same whether you're living off of 7 figures or 6 figures. It's all relative to a degree.
There's a phrase that I've coined, but I've heard it from clients over and over and over. It's, am I going to be okay? That's
Yeah,
really what you're talking about, right? And
that's
that
right.
really does stem from cash flow. Um, that gets me thinking, one of my favorite calculators that we have inside of the software of the living balance sheet is the cash flow simulator. I don't think I'd be remiss if I said that's kind of your baby. I mean, that came from probably what we just talked about, where you saw people worrying about cash flow, but this is specific to retirement.
Yeah.
Um, what you know, what really drove that? I mean, did that come quickly to you? Did it come over a decade? I mean, talk to me a little bit about how you came around that idea.
That definitely that came over time. When it had to be built, it obviously had to be built kind of all at once with what felt like the right set of ideas in that moment. But it definitely came from lots of client conversations, lots of work with other advisors, lots of collaboration for my colleagues in my firm, and then at the living balance sheet level, lots of other really really good advisors. To me, though, the fundamental impetus behind it is clients at some point ask us the question, what is my income going to look like? Like how,
Yeah.
how is this going to work in retirement? And we have to have the ability to show them um, the big picture, of course. Like most people want the big picture most of the time, but to have real confidence that it's going to work, you have to be able to get down to like ground level and show like this. These are the sources of cash flow. Like these are the assumptions we're making. This is how it's all going to come together, and this is how we might stress test it. And so I felt like we didn't really have a tool that made it easy to tell that story and to like deal with all the complications that you have to be able to account for to really map out somebody's retirement life. So that's really where simulator came from at the end of the day.
It's when I first saw it, I felt like it was complicated, and it is, but there's a reason for that. I, as you know, in fact, this podcast really deals a lot with investing and investing behavior, and it's a love of mine. Every investment portfolio and client should have an investment policy statement. That's almost a compliance thing at this point. If it's not, it probably is. Certainly, all of our clients have it. But what people didn't have, in my mind, is an income policy statement, which is really what you're talking about. It's a roadmap, right? You've got 4 buckets, 8 buckets, 10 buckets, and buckets that aren't even a really good term for it, but different tranches of money. And it's amazing. And there's a question on the back end of this, but it's amazing to me how many clients will come to us, or new clients come to us and say their current advisor just tells them they're going to be fine. They don't have a map. They certainly don't know when they're going to turn one thing on and maybe not another, and turn one off, et cetera. And so I guess the question I have, because again, you're a unique guest in that you not only deal with clients, but you deal with advisors, new ones, veteran ones. I feel like generally out there in the general population, advisors can sometimes be the weak link to a client. What mistakes do you see from your perspective when you're in front of the room or behind that microphone and training and coaching advisors? If you could, one or two mistakes you see advisors making. It doesn't have to be necessarily on the income, but on any area.
Yeah. I will tell you, it does relate to the income. Probably the biggest consistent mistake I see, and I hope this is not necessarily something we see of our colleagues, that would be at an event where we're doing a lot of training, Joe, but I see it from people that are new to our community of advisors. They're coming from somewhere else. They've been really successful somewhere else. The number one mistake is when clients are asking their version of that question, am I going to be okay? That advisor is answering it with a Monte Carlo simulation that says we have a 75% or 80% degree of confidence that you won't run out of money. And that's like gold stamp for the advisor, gold stamp for the client. The client doesn't really understand it, but they're being told that it's good. And everybody feels great about it. And we move on. And what I find to be true is that advisor rarely really understands what that like analytic, that simulation, that very complex mathematical thing. Like, what is it actually doing? What is it not doing? To me, that what it's really doing is giving people an undeserved, very false sense of confidence about their strategy. We we may talk about it. We have a very clear perspective on when it's appropriate to do something like that. The problem with that is it's a black box. It spits out a number. It's like, oh, you got a 90%, Joe. That's at University of Maryland. Like, that's great, right? Like, you feel really, really good about that grade.
I would,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, exactly. Me too. So great. A tool like you referenced, Cash Flow Simulator, that's a linear tool where we break things out into individual tranches. You can see it all. You actually, in some ways, have more clarity. You can't be fooled by the jumble of assumptions that when you put it on the black box creates this illusion of safety. So over reliance on a big analytic like black box model like a Monte Carlo simulation to me is like the number one killer of a retirement strategy, because you could go decades getting that type of feedback in the echo chamber of looks great, looks great, looks great, you're still on track, and it could be very wrong and you don't find out until it might be very late in the game or too late in the game to get on a different track.
And that's scary. I mean, one of the things, so I had a few client meetings today before we jumped on the call, and all three of them actually were people either retiring this year or within the next 2 years. And so we're right there. And for me, having done this almost 30 years, you look, humans are going to make mistakes, but one mistake I cannot live with is if you're my client and I tell you to do this and you do it, and then you run out of money in retirement. Like, that's an unacceptable failure.
Yeah,
You know,
worst.
and what you're describing is scary, because you're saying that, well, you can, if you're using these tools that I think our industry, if you look at the industry generally, holds out as the gold standard, as you said, and we put our trust in that, but we're 10, 15 years down the road, we're never going to get those 10 years back. Then what? Now it's too late almost.
That's right.
I know you do a lot of work too, obviously, as do I, in the area of protection. Don't we have the same kind of issues there? I mean, I don't want to throw a softball at you, but I guess put it this way: as people come into the fold in a more traditional setting, maybe from other places they've been, whether it be protection or maybe debt, what are some other areas aside from investing in just retirement that you see are big mistakes coming in the door?
Yeah, I think the theme in both areas, if you think like retirement income planning is this like complex big topic that we spent a little bit of time on there versus something as simple as protection. The theme is like overconfidence, and maybe overconfidence derived from underestimating the magnitude of a risk, and therefore not taking the appropriate action to insulate yourself from it. So a simple example would be like not appreciating that your income, your ability to earn the income and make good decisions with it, and save an appropriate amount of money, like that is the number one driver of financial success.
Mm-hmm.
Is that nothing else comes even close. Second place is a distant second place. So the biggest mistake I see around that is people have really inadequate, or like in some cases zero protection, like really high income earners who have this golden goose from an economic like resource standpoint. They don't have protection if they get sued, and that income gets curtailed. They get sick or injured, they can't work, that income stops for even like a couple of years. It could be devastating.
Yeah.
Not to mention if it's long term, somebody passes away, obviously. Not having the protection in place to ensure that if your number one like fuel that fuels your economic engine, your income, if it stops and you don't have a mechanism to replace it, liability insurance, disability insurance, life insurance, that is something that no other financial strategy, no other wizardry is ever going to overcome, because the magnitude of the loss is so great. And it's like, it feels, I think, to a lot of people like such a boring thing to have to consider and tackle that it's easy to overlook it. It's the most critical, in my mind, like easiest, simplest step to take is just to ensure that you've got protection equal to the asset, and the asset is you. And so whatever your income is, present value of your future income during your working years, your whole game is won or lost by that number, being available to you and your family. We want protection equal to the present value of that income. That to me, I don't know if that's really line, the answer you're looking for, Joe, as far as that question. But that to me is like the big mistake people make. It's such an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
DI, term insurance, liability insurance, legal documents in place. You could knock that stuff out in like 30 days and feel really bulletproof and be really bulletproof, but without having to get into any sophisticated planning yet. And that's still there. There's still like way more we can do to like take that up to the next level, but that's like 95% of the way there. And most people don't do it.
I think that's a great answer. It's important, I think, for people to hear it from multiple different areas. The truth of the matter is, I can't think. I mean, aside from commercials, every now and then you'll see an insurance company. Obviously, they're having a commercial of whatever product they're selling, life insurance, car insurance, whatever. But I really feel like, and I don't know if you felt this too, but or seen that, but when a new client or potential client comes in, and I look at, we talk about doing things like in order, right? Protection first, not because it's fancy or sexy or we like to talk about it, but because if we make a mistake in that area, you can't recover from it. No matter, like to your point, no matter what the rate of return is, no matter how much you save, once you make a fatal mistake in the area of protection, it really is recoverable. I don't see that it's been addressed generally in that traditional kind of planning mindset where protection is kind of put to the side, not because it's not important, because the advisors don't want to talk about it, because maybe clients don't want to talk about it. So, if there are clients of mine listening or people out there who aren't my clients, and this is the first time and the last time they ever get to hear from Neal Brincefield, I mean, what is your message around that? Is it actually as critical as you and I are making it out to be, or are we just saying it? We're just being a little bit dramatic.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I get why. To me, it's like I would couch these types of financial decisions, the prudence around doing these things, in the same vein as exercising, eating the right way, getting enough sleep. Like we know all the research, all the science tells us, we know that those are the things that lead to a long, healthy life. It's like an easy thing to understand. And it's a really easy thing to not do. It's a really easy thing to put off. It's not always fun. It's like boring if not painful in some cases. And to me, these are of that same kind of a category. Nobody gets up in the morning and thinks like, I really want to go button up these legal documents today. I want to go talk to the person at HR that's going to let me get like more group DI today. I want to go apply for life insurance and get, a couple $1 million more to be fully protected. And yet we know, like the average person doesn't, because you don't experience it like you and I have. We know how important it is, how easy it is for somebody to do it and get it right. But we also, we've talked enough about different instances in our careers for our clients. When somebody doesn't have the right protection in place and something goes wrong, it's devastating to them and to their family. There's no recovering from it. They'll never be where they would have otherwise been. And there's really nothing that we can do after the fact to improve, where they are. We can treat the pain, but we're not treating the like underlying issue, the underlying cause at that point in time. So you just got to go, talk to somebody who can help you get those things in place and make sure you got the full protection that's allowable. And there is a limit that anybody can get for life insurance, disability, and liability, and then get the legal documents that wrap all that up. It should be the first thing you do. Don't fund a 529. Don't fund your 401k. Don't try to pay off your mortgage or do any of those other like long-term financial wealth building things until you've got the fundamentals, like the roof over your head. It's I just can't think of anything more important to do. The rest of it is easy. This part tends to feel hard, but when you actually sit down and do it with a professional, it's not hard at all.
Yeah. I mean, I think people like you and me and anybody else in this industry who don't take that approach, I mean, really we're doing a massive disservice. And, to your point, I understand it. Like the emotions are around the investments because people see them all day long. They can look on their phone, they log into Fox or CNBC. That's all they see. Nobody is seeing the human life value of their life insurance or where they are on that daily. So it's just not an emotional thing in front of them, but it's really, I think, our job to bring it to the forefront. I don't see that in just general traditional planning. It's certainly not the first thing people address. oftentimes it's never addressed, and that's kind of a scary thing.
To your point, Joe, it's something I'll throw out there as like a parallel, because you're right. We see the stock market movement, the economic, news, everyone's following this or that. There was this IPO. We're all talking about it at work. You don't see that on the protection side, but you do see the consequences of it sometimes. And the best example I can think of that I know we've talked about a lot is GoFundMe. I mean, the fact that
Mm-hmm.
we see that in your social feed, it's getting, links are getting emailed around. This devastating thing happened to this family. They need help. All of us as human beings, like, we want to help, and so I'm happy to, we always want to like support somebody in need, but we also know that in almost every single one of those cases, the right planning would have made that crisis, financial crisis at least, like totally avoidable. Never needs to happen. It shouldn't exist. If the right planning is in place, it just shouldn't happen. It shouldn't exist. Like that, to me, every time you see that, that should be a wake-up call for you to go and ask, like, have I taken the steps that I need to take from a planning standpoint to ensure that my loved ones, or me personally, like, I'm never in that position. I'm never putting anybody else in that position. Because that to me is the evidence that the fact that it exists and is proliferated and there's that many GoFundMe's out there is evidence that our industry is just failing people when it comes to protecting against these risks that are so known, they're so quantifiable, and they're so easily mitigated. But for the average person, they're not being addressed.
Yeah. Yeah. And that goes back to the worry thing. I think a lot of people, well, you mentioned waking up in the middle of the night, and am I going to be okay? I think people do think about insurance generally. They may ignore or not remember some of the more nuanced pieces like liability insurance or disability insurance, which you've referenced. But, they do think about it generally and they get worried.
Sure.
I want to switch back to retirement for a minute. Again, a lot of people listening to this podcast, it's right there in front of them, or they want it to want it to be right there in front of them. This could probably be a difficult question because it's so different in how to quantify it. But in your estimation, the happiest people in retirement that you've met, or the people with the least amount of worry, what do they have in common, if anything? Can you put your finger on something that you would say is kind of universal to all those folks, or not?
I think it's really clear. And this is, I don't know if people are going to love this answer or not, but the happiest people in retirement are the ones that aren't worried about where their paycheck is coming from. Like nothing, they're not worried about something external threatening their quality of life. And just to be practical about what that means, the opposite of that is the person who is in retirement. And I've had clients who are this way because this is what they said they wanted. And I probably should have done a better job of like talking them off of this. They're relying on the market to deliver good news to them on a consistent basis, like month in and month out. And the market doesn't do that. It's not inherent to the market. So they're relying on variable assets only to provide for their fixed income wants, their fixed requirements, even their needs, their basics. Those are unhappy people. I just promise you, like, check in any given quarter, odds are high, they're unhappy. The people who have the same investments, but they've got those investments buffered by a floor of income that covers the essentials: Social Security, pension, annuity income that they can't outlive. It's totally market independent. They got liquidity, like stable value, true liquidity, whether that's cash or it's cash value or it's equity line or whatever it is. They're free from worry. They're just like living their life. They're having a great time. They're thinking about what they want to do with their time, the time they have left, instead of thinking about what will I do, if my portfolio continues to have this kind of volatility or this kind of slides. Like, to me, that freedom from worry around what the market or the economy is going to do is the number one correlator of like happiness in retirement. And there's a lot of research that I know you are aware of, Joe, that like agrees with that. It's an obvious thing, but it's not the way most of our industry actually plans for people.
I love that answer. I think first of all, I think you're right in the answer in that when people don't have to worry about where the source of the paycheck, so to speak, is coming from. But what's interesting is that I would be willing to bet, and I think you're with me on this, that if the last 5 years in the market were the opposite of what we actually got in the last 5 years of the market. In other words, massive fear, bear market, lots of red, not green, I bet you people would love your answer because you said, I don't think people are going to love this answer. And because really what you're talking about is more guaranteed income and less reliance on the stock market. I'm a stock market guy. I love it. My clients pay me to worry for them in a lot of regards, but like I'm following 17 different markets around the globe all the time. That's not the average bear out there. They're not following that. They're relying on, in some instances, an advisor to navigate them through that. To not have floored income, I think, is a mistake. But I think we're fighting an uphill battle when markets do nothing but provide, incredible rates of return like we've seen. I mean, do you find that to be true too? I mean, you've been through many, downsides too. I mean,
yeah. I mean, Joe, to your point, I love the example of the last 5 years. The only people that are like really truly feel that way are the ones who are not yet retired. Even in the last 5 years, there's been amazing upside. Like we've only been a couple of blips in the last 5 years. Mm-hmm. Generally, it's been just a lot of upward movement and enthusiasm across like all those different markets that you're talking about. And if you've stuck in for the ride, you've been rewarded for it. If you're in distribution mode, though, you've had some pretty unsettling moments. So I just think about the conversations I've had with clients who are worried in the last 5 years, and it's been moments like Russia invaded Ukraine, mm-hmm. market went berserk. Tariff policy uncertainty, market went berserk. This year, war with Iran, market went berserk. And like in all cases, things evened out. And like once the panic was over and the initial panic was over, we ended up right where we were and better. And if you were taking withdrawals through the panic, you lost. Like you locked in losses.
Right.
You did the opposite of what we know we're supposed to do when we're managing an investment portfolio, which is invest and don't sell. Just don't sell. Like manage emotions and don't sell. The reality is like that's going to happen. It has happened in the last 5 years. Like one quarter in a year, generally at least one quarter has been a little bit topsy-turvy. And that's a problem. If you're in retirement, you're making withdrawals. It's a real problem. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen, and it's gonna happen consistently on like small scale blips, and every one of those is causing you to lock in losses. There's also going to be 2008s. There's mm-hmm. going to be 2022s. There's going to be these really nasty market years through the course of like a 20 or 30 year retirement. And I hear you say this all the time, Joe. You want to not sell your investments. You want them to grow. That's what they do. They grow. So if you have a big enough floor of income that you can build your portfolio on top of in retirement, you can still be in a position where generally all your investments have to do is grow. And that is the thing they're born to do. That's like what they are as a species. Don't try to make them into an income vehicle. Right. There are other tools that do that really, really well. So
I want to underscore that point.
I love that example.
You said something in a way I haven't heard you say before. You probably have said it, and I just didn't listen to you. But it's to your point that the only thing the investments do well is grow. That's it. That's the only thing investments do well is grow. And in order for them to grow, is you can't sell them in bad markets. So of course, my clients, they're rolling their eyes right now. They hear that all the time. However, what you said is that, but we're talking retirement. And if you have a bucket of variable money and they are down 10% in a quarter, which has happened recently,
sure,
and you're automatically selling them, then you're doing the exact opposite of what we've all talked about, which is you don't sell when the markets are down. And I don't think people think in terms of that. I don't think advisors think in terms of that. So that's something I wanted to underscore.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
When you look at the big picture and you run, again, Monte Carlo, like mathematical simulation, 1,000 times, and it worked 85% of the time, then it all makes sense. Like right. It's easy. You've taken into account all those little blips on the radar. If you're one of the 1,000 times, like that's you, that's your life, that it feels like a roller coaster that you're riding.
Right.
It's not a smooth ride. It's like, it's real life. It's your experience. And I've never encountered a single client who's comfortable with it.
Right.
So this whole like 85% of the time it worked, like 0% of the time it works for people in reality, because it is your money, your life. You only get one shot at it, and you're like having to live through that. It's not, I've never encountered somebody who's actually comfortable doing it.
Well, you put it in an interesting way. So a lot of investment and only advisors will talk in terms of years. And we've done that, sure. 08 sure. and 22 and even the COVID year. But what you actually started with, and I do this a lot too, is you didn't bring up the year, you brought up the event. So whether it's you know, Hamas attacking Israel or Russia attacking Ukraine or the tariff or Brexit, to go back a little further,
Sure.
or even a weird election, 2016, where nobody was expecting the outcome of that election. The events are scarier than the numbers. You know, the numbers tend to rebound quickly, but man, those events that come along with those negative numbers can lead clients to make some really, really bad mistakes at the wrong time. And sometimes the advisor is the weak link, you know, and they're the ones facilitating the bad behavior, which is always scary. Um,
Yeah.
I want to tap.
Your bills don't like they don't adapt to that moment. Like
No, they go up
your
sometimes.
costs your costs are your cost. And it's funny, like we talk about other advisors in the industry. There's a school of thought that says you adjust your lifestyle based on your portfolio returns in
That's
retirement,
insane.
and it's insane. And yet it's an idea that's floated out there. It's what a convenient idea for the general like financial planning and investment industry that
Sure.
people could just magically change their mortgage payment or their medical bill or their utility bill. You don't decide what those things are. Not once it's all locked in. So it's crazy to think that you're going to take something that is the most variable asset on your balance sheet, and that it all by itself is going to be the engine that pays for these fixed expenses that you can't wave a magic wand and make them go away.
Well, as you're talking through
Anyway,
that, you know, we've got, I know that the current tax law is supposed to be permanent, but Congress views permanence very differently than you and I might, right? It's permanent until it's not. So potential tax increases scare people because they've got an income in retirement that they're thinking through, and then taxes go up and they weren't prepared for it. Or it could be, there's so many different things that pop up. Social Security cuts that are in the news right now, potentially.
sure.
You know, the CBO talking about reducing across the board. And so if you've got uncertainty around Social Security payments and uncertainty around taxation, and then we throw in a variable only bucket, I mean, it's a recipe, to your point, of not being happy, right? The happiest people you said in retirement are the ones who aren't completely reliant on variable numbers. Um, yeah, it's a scary place to be in, especially if you get 5 or 10 years into retirement. I mean, that changes too, because you can't exactly go back to the workforce, right, and just start collecting that big
Right.
paycheck again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is the challenge to me with retirement is there's no reverting back. There's no attaining the average. Like we think about it, people think about it all the time, and when you're sort of in that accumulation mode, it's like, this was a tough year. We say it to clients, don't worry, it's going to revert to the mean. You know,
right.
you're going to be back. You just got to stay steady. That doesn't apply anymore once you're taking money out. Like every single month that goes by that you're making a withdrawal, you're getting that experience and you're locking it in. You never revert back to the mean. You don't get the mean. You don't get a market average anymore. You just get your result.
Yeah,
And that I just find as a concept that certainly clients are, of course they're not equipped to understand because they've never had to live it.
right.
Unfortunately, most advisors don't understand it either. And that to me is like the real source of the issue, because now it's like people without that perspective giving others a false sense of confidence about, what their plan is or isn't going to do in retirement.
I have two last questions for you. One just came to my mind. I don't know if you've put a lot of thought into this, although knowing you, I think you probably have. You know, I feel like, of course, I'm not objective. I feel like my clients are, if they've been with me for any period of time and they know me and they've experienced how we do the planning and the calculators that we use and the living balance sheet and the app and the vault and all the things that they've got available to them, they feel pretty secure. They know Joe's leading the way. They know they've done the right things. I guess my question is, you know, I'm 51. As the Joes of the world become 71 and the clients are still retired, you know, as our industry ages up, Neal, I guess is my question.
Yeah.
What do you see behind? I mean, how should people feel when their advisors retire? Is that something they should be, we were just doing a podcast on this. Is that something they should be asking an advisor before they start working with them? Have you given much thought to that? What do you think?
It's funny, we've never talked about this, but I've definitely thought about it a lot and I've had a lot of conversations around it. This to me, this actually ties back to a lot of what we discussed. This is one of the fundamental risks that as an individual out there, a client of ours, like you have, this is on your shoulders. You got to manage this too. And to me, it comes down to this, Joe. It's like, I know I have to expect that my advisor, there's a high likelihood that when I'm retired, during some course of my retirement, my advisor is going to be retired too. And
Yeah.
they may retire, depending on age, like they may be hanging it up before you are ready to go into retirement as a client. So what I can't do, what I can't like be willing to buy into is a strategy that requires that person, that professional to manage a complex plan that they're probably not going to be there to execute all the way through the journey.
Hmm.
All the more reason why what we have to have, like what I want for anybody that I care about, any of my clients, like I'm telling them, I'm not going to be here. I probably won't be here. Like I want to retire one day too. And in a lot of instances, I'm working with somebody who I'm 46. They're 26. I'm not going to be there for them when they're 70 years old walking in retirement. That is like never going to happen. I have to implement a plan for them that is clear enough and solid enough that it doesn't require me to be there with like my hands on the wheel for them month in and month out. Obviously, there's succession plans. Like we have those in place. We're
Sure.
going to have somebody else to pass it on to, but the succession can't be this like fantasy that I'm going to download everything I know about all the nuances of all the conversations we've had with that client and pass that on to my successor. The plan has to be resilient enough that it doesn't require that to happen. And that's where guaranteed income, stable value assets, risk management, and then a portfolio that only has to do one simple thing, which is what it was born to do, grow. That is a strategy that is timeless. Like that's a strategy that I can transfer to another equally equipped, like-minded kind of a professional. I'm the wizard. I've got the right angle on the market. That probably is totally false to begin with, and it definitely doesn't transfer to the next generation. So I actually see that, Joe, as like a big retirement risk for people to not be thinking about how resilient their plan is when that baton gets passed to somebody else.
Well, first of all, it's definitely untrue that there's a advisor who's a wizard on the markets. I mean, I always tell people like the last person that knows the future is your financial advisor. They can't predict anything. Yeah, I really like the way you framed that, because the way my mind is thinking through that is that if the plan is elegantly complex, right? Like obviously there's all these different pieces that you have to deal with, but not in a way that is required upon one person, then really the only thing that you have to download to the next generation advisor probably is philosophy around markets, which is a relatively easy thing to train, right? The 26-year-old,
That's
as
the
you
moving
mentioned.
part. At the end of the day, that's still going to be the moving part, to your point. Like that's where we got to be aligned.
Yeah.
That's an easy thing to do.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, last question. I'm going to put you in the seat of, I will not name the radio talk show host who's out there speaking to millions of Americans for decades and may or may not provide great advice. But the benefit of this person is they get time with millions of Americans. If you had 5 minutes to sit down with every American family out there, but you could only pick one thing for them to pay attention to, what would you do? What would you leave with them? You've got 5 minutes with all these different American families. What would Neal Brincefield tell them to pay attention to?
Do I get the whole 5 minutes right now? Or
No.
do you want the headline?
You got to give me a headline.
That is a great question, Joe. I think I would spend 5 minutes talking about how to protect and manage income.
Mm-hmm.
Like high level, protect and manage income from wherever you are today until retirement, and then retirement until death. High level, if you got a plan to do that, generally not only are you going to be okay, all the other decisions get easier. They fall into place. But let that be like the driver. Let that be the tail that wags the dog, instead of some totally off the wall, ridiculous buy term and invest the difference thing. We're going to put a stake in the ground there. Like it's a mistake, and it's also not the big picture. Some return focused investment strategy, it's probably a mistake to think that way, and it's not the big picture. To me, the big picture is always, how do I manage and protect my income in my working years? How do I manage and protect my income in my retirement years? And if you focus on both of those things, and you do the things that are necessary to make both of those areas like A plus, the rest of it is just details. I think the rest of it's going to fall into place. So
I think that's great. I actually didn't expect that good of an answer from you, Neal. No, I think that was a great answer, because
expectations, Joe. I get it.
I always start with low expectations. No, I mean, again, to your point, you mentioned like a buy term, invest the difference, or hey, everybody pays off every debt that they've ever owned, no matter what, first thing before you do anything else, or eat beans and rice. Rules of thumb, generally speaking, are bad.
Yeah.
But I try to make you give me a rule of thumb, and truthfully, I think you're right, because no matter your age, your income bracket, and where you wind up, age and income bracket, if you protect the income source, and that could be with insurance, or it could be just protecting the income source in terms of how it comes out later on down the road. That rule of thumb of starting there, I really think makes a lot of sense. I love that answer. It really is elegantly complex, really, and I think it would remove worry, which is what we're trying to do.
I'm glad I could surprise you.
Yeah, you never cease to surprise me. You still drive a Rivian, which bothers me a little bit, but that's okay. We're gonna. Yeah, I had to sneak that in there.
I can't win them all.
You can't win them all. It's very well put. I really appreciate the time you spent. I mean, people don't know this of you. I do. You've got multiple businesses really you're operating in, and different compliances you're dealing with, and home office people and guys like me, and to take 30 or 40 minutes out of your day is a big ask, and I appreciate that. And thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks, Joe.
All right.
Joseph DeLisi is a registered representative and financial advisor of Park Avenue Securities, LLC, OSJ 5280 Carroll Canyon Road, 300 San Diego, California, 92121-619-648-6400. Securities products and advisory services offered through PAS, member FINRA, SIPC. Financial representative of the Guardian Life Insurance Company of America, Guardian, New York, New York. PAS is a wholly owned subsidiary of Guardian. Westpac Wealth Partners, LLC is not an affiliate or subsidiary of PAS or Guardian. Insurance products offered through Westpac Wealth Partners and Insurance Services, LLC, a DBA of Westpac Wealth Partners, LLC. CA Insurance License number 0D34103. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not to be construed as tax, legal, or investment advice. Although the information has been gathered from sources believed to be reliable, please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information should be relied upon only when coordinated with individual professional advice. Guardian and its subsidiaries, agents, and employees do not provide tax, legal, or accounting advice. Guardian and its subsidiaries do not issue or advise with regards to mortgages, property and casualty insurance, and/or car insurance. Consult your tax, legal, or accounting professional regarding your individual situation. All investments and investment strategies contain risk and may lose value. Diversification does not guarantee profit or protect against market loss. Equities may decline in value due to both real and perceived general market, economic, and industry conditions. Investing in securities of smaller companies tends to be more volatile and less liquid than securities of larger companies. Investing in the bond market is subject to certain risks, including market interest rate, issuer credit, and inflation risk. This material is intended for general use. By providing this content, Park Avenue Securities, LLC, and your financial representative are not undertaking to provide investment advice or make a recommendation for a specific individual or situation, or to otherwise act in a fiduciary capacity. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Indices are unmanaged, and one cannot invest directly in an index.
The Living Balance Sheet, LBS, and the LBS logo are service marks of the Guardian Life Insurance Company of America, Guardian, New York, NY. Copyright 2005 to 2026, Guardian. 9056690.1. Expires 8/28.